Something's wrong. There's a chip hidden in your desk clock, Sarai whispers, her voice a spark in the shadowed office. In a rain-soaked Chicago mansion, 11-year-old Sarai, a street-smart black girl, uncovers a chilling secret. A surveillance chip hidden in billionaire CEO Langston Carter's watch, pulsing with betrayal. Her tablet's glow reveals a signal no one else saw, cracking open a corporate conspiracy that threatens NexTech's neural chip empire. Was it his wife, Catherine, who planted it? Or is Spectre a shadowy mastermind watching closer than they think? This tech thriller will grip you till the end. Subscribe to catch our latest pulse-pounding tales. Comment below. Where are you watching from? What would you do if your tech turned traitor? Will Sarai's genius outsmart the spies? Stay tuned to unravel the truth. This story's twist will leave you. The Chicago train station was a cavern of echoes at 2:03 a.m., its platform sliced by the jaundiced glow of flickering sodium lights. A November wind clawed through the open concourse, biting at Langston Carter's knuckles as he tugged his wool coat tighter. At 47, the CEO of NexTech Innovations was a man who commanded boardrooms, his sharp jaw and steady gaze disarming rivals and investors alike. Tonight, though, he was just a stranded traveler, his last train missed after a marathon meeting that left his mind knotted with neural chip schematics. NexTech's next billion-dollar leap. His polished loafers clicked against cracked tiles, each step a metronome of frustration. His phone, his lifeline to the empire he'd built, was gone, slipped from his pocket in the day's chaos, leaving him unmoored in this desolate place. Langston patted his coat pocket for the 10th time, cursing under his breath. The station was nearly empty, save for a drunk muttering in a corner and a janitor's broom scraping distantly. Then he saw her, a small figure curled against a rusted bench, her frame swallowed by a hoodie so thin it mocked the cold. A cardboard sign rested at her feet, scrawled in marker. Will work for food. Sarai, 11 years old, her black skin catching the light like polished obsidian, didn't look up, but her eyes, sharp, unyielding, locked onto his, not with the pleading he'd expected, but with a defiance that stopped him mid-stride. It wasn't hunger in her gaze, it was something fiercer, like a blade honed by years no child should endure. He crouched, his knees protesting, and met her at eye level. "You're too young to be out here alone," he said, his voice low, careful, like he was negotiating a deal. Sarai's lips twitched, not quite a smile. "I've been out here longer than you've been pacing for your train." Her words landed like a jab, precise, unflinching, carrying the weight of someone who'd seen the world's underbelly and refused to blink. Langston's brow furrowed. "How'd you know I missed my train?" She tilted her head, her braids swaying faintly. "You're dressed like money, but you're stuck here with me. And you keep checking that pocket, but it's flat. Lost something, didn't you? Your phone." Langston's hand froze mid-pat, his pulse quickening. This kid, barely taller than his briefcase, had read him like a balance sheet. "You're sharp," he said, leaning back, his CEO instincts kicking in. "So where's my phone, genius?" Sarai's eyes flicked across the platform, scanning the shadows with a predator's focus. Her gaze settled on a man in a frayed jacket, hovering near a trash can, his hands fidgeting too much for innocence. "Him," she said, voice low. "He's been circling since you got here, eyeing your fancy coat. Bet he lifted it when you were distracted at the ticket machine." Langston followed her gaze, skepticism warring with intrigue. The man's shifty posture screamed guilt, but how had she seen it from a bench? Before he could ask, Sarai was on her feet, her sneakers silent on the concrete. She approached the man with a swagger that belied her size, her voice casual but edged with steel. "Hey, mister, drop the rich guy's phone, or I'll scream for security. Saw you snag it by the booth." The man froze, his eyes darting like a cornered rat. He muttered a curse, then tossed a sleek black phone onto the bench, its screen glinting under the lights. Without a word, he slunk into the dark, swallowed by the station's gloom. Sarai scooped up the phone and walked back, handing it to Langston with a shrug. "Streets teach you to watch," she said, her tone matter-of-fact. "People's hands move faster than their lies." Langston unlocked the device, confirming it was his. Emails, contracts, NexTech secrets intact. He stared at her, his mind racing. He'd negotiated with tycoons, outsmarted spies. But this girl, with nothing but a cardboard sign, had just outmaneuvered a thief and him in one breath. Her brain wasn't just quick, it was a machine, cutting through noise to find truth. He saw it then, raw genius, forged in hardship, waiting for a spark. "You didn't have to do that," he said, pocketing the phone. Sarai's eyes narrowed, wary of kindness. "Didn't have to, wanted to." Langston pulled off his scarf, the cashmere warm from his neck, and pressed it into her hands along with a business card, his name embossed in gold. "I'm Langston Carter. Call this number if you want a real shot. School, a bed, tools to keep that mind of yours sharp." Her fingers traced the card's edge, her gaze flickering with something new. Curiosity, maybe hope. "No promises," she said, but the way she tucked the card into her hoodie said otherwise. Langston stood, his breath catching as he looked at her. He'd built NexTech by spotting potential where others saw risk, and Sarai was a gamble he couldn't ignore. She wasn't just a kid, she was a signal in the static, a mind that could rewrite the rules. "No pity," he said, echoing her defiance. "Just a chance." As he turned to hail a late-night cab, a faint buzz hummed overhead. A drone, its red light blinking once before vanishing into the night. Langston shook it off, blaming exhaustion, but a prickle of unease lingered, sharp as Sarai's stare. 3 days later, Sarai stood in NexTech's gleaming lobby, her backpack slung low, her presence jarring among the suits. Langston, defying his board's murmurs of liability, arranged her foster care, then adoption. He gave her a room in his Gold Coast mansion, stocked with books and a NexTech beta tablet for learning. As he watched her unpack, her fingers already tapping the screen, he felt a shift. He'd found her in the shadows, but she was already illuminating something he hadn't known he'd lost. Purpose. Somewhere in the city a conspiracy was stirring, but tonight it was just them, a man and a girl standing on the edge of something vast. Rain lashed the windows of Langston Carter's Gold Coast mansion, the Chicago sky a bruised slab of gray that mirrored the weight in his chest. It was a Thursday afternoon, 14 months since he'd brought Sarai into his world, and the 47-year-old CEO of NexTech Innovations sat in his oak-paneled office, a fortress of polished shelves and humming servers. His desk was a battlefield of neural chip patents, each page a piece of the technology that could wire the world's smart devices into a single, seamless mind. Langston's eyes, sharp but shadowed by sleepless nights, scanned the documents, his pen tapping a restless rhythm. The drone he'd glimpsed at the train station lingered in his memory. A fleeting red blink, dismissed but not forgotten, like a splinter under his skin. Sarai slipped into the room, her sneakers silent on the Persian rug, her presence as unobtrusive as a shadow. At 11, she was no longer the wary girl from the station, though her obsidian eyes still carried that street-honed edge. Her braids swayed as she clutched her NexTech beta tablet, a gift from Langston loaded with security suites for learning. Over the past year, she'd devoured coding boot camps and Priya's mentorship at NexTech's youth lab, her fingers weaving apps as naturally as she'd once read crowds for survival. Boredom had driven her here, away from her room's books and puzzles, to the one place where Langston's world felt alive with secrets. She perched on a leather chair, her tablet glowing as she fiddled with the smart-enabled desk clock, a sleek chrome gift from Catherine, Langston's second wife of 2 years. Its digital face ticked silently, a quiet sentinel beside his papers. Sarai's brow furrowed, her tablet pinging with a soft, insistent chime. "This clock's lying," she muttered, her voice slicing through the room's hush. Langston glanced up, his pen freezing mid-tap. "Lying how?" he asked, his CEO instincts prickling at the certainty in her tone. Sarai swiveled the tablet, revealing a network trace graphed in sharp blues and reds. "It's sending a signal. Low frequency, encrypted, not your Wi-Fi or Bluetooth." Her fingers danced across the screen, pulling up logs she'd run with Nmap, a tool Priya had taught her in camp. "I thought it was a glitch at first," she admitted, her cheeks flushing faintly, like a router echo. "But I reran it with Priya's trick, filtering for non-standard protocols, and it's real. It's pulsing every 3 days, 2 a.m. sharp." Langston's pulse quickened, his mind flashing to the drone, the station, the unseen eyes he couldn't shake. He leaned over, studying the jagged signal spikes on her screen. NexTech's systems were ironclad, built to thwart nation-state hackers. Yet this 11-year-old had caught something his security team missed. "How'd you even think to check the clock?" he asked, his voice tight with a mix of awe and unease. Sarai shrugged, her eyes fixed on the tablet. "I scan stuff when I'm bored. Streets taught me to notice what doesn't belong, like a guy hiding a knife in a crowd. This signal's the same. It's sneaky." Langston reached for the clock, its chrome cool under his fingers. He pried open its base with a letter opener, the metal yielding with a soft click. Nestled inside, no bigger than a grain of rice, was a microchip, its red LED blinking like a heartbeat. His breath caught, the air in the room suddenly too thick. "Sarai," he said, voice low. "What the hell is this?" She leaned closer, her tablet syncing with a diagnostic app Priya had shared. "It's a surveillance chip," she said, her tone steady but her eyes wide. "Audio, maybe video. It's military grade, hiding in plain sight." Langston's stomach churned. Catherine had given him the clock 6 months ago, her smile warm as she'd set it on his desk, saying it matched his precision. Now that memory felt like a lie, her laughter a mask over something colder. He called Marcus, his security chief, who arrived in minutes, his broad frame filling the doorway. Marcus synced his RF scanner to Sarai's tablet, his jaw tightening as the device confirmed her findings. "She's right," he said, his voice clipped. "It's transmitting. Low power, designed to evade sweeps. We need to sweep the whole house, now." Sarai watched, her fingers still on the tablet, her mind racing. She remembered the station, the thief's nervous hands, the drone's red eye. "There's more," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I can feel it, like someone standing behind you, breathing." Marcus nodded, his eyes meeting Langston's. "She's got instincts we can't teach. This isn't a one-off." Langston stared at the chip, its tiny light a taunt. His office, his sanctuary was compromised, and the woman he'd vowed to love might be the one holding the knife. Thunder rumbled outside, the storm closing in. Langston turned to Sarai, his voice raw. "You learned this in a year?" She met his gaze, her defiance softened by a flicker of pride. "Streets taught me to see what's hidden. Your tablet just gave me a better lens." He felt a surge of something fierce. Pride, yes, but also fear. This girl, who'd outsmarted a thief with nothing but her eyes, had just blown open a crack in his world. As Marcus prepped for the sweep, Langston's gaze drifted to the clock, its exposed chip staring back like a traitor's confession. Outside, the rain fell harder, and a shadow flickered across the window, a shape too deliberate to be a trick of the storm. Someone was watching, and Sarai had just lit the first match in a war Langston didn't yet understand. The storm had retreated, but its ghost lingered in the damp air of Langston Carter's Gold Coast mansion, where shadows clung to the walls like uninvited guests. It was dusk, hours after Sarai's discovery of the surveillance chip in the desk clock, and the grand house felt less like a home and more like a battlefield. Langston stood in the living room, its chandelier casting fractured light across mahogany floors, his jaw tight as he watched Marcus, his security chief, sweep the space with an RF scanner. The device hummed, a low drone that matched the pulse in Langston's temples. At 47, the CEO of NexTech Innovations was used to outmaneuvering rivals. But this betrayal in his own sanctuary, cut deeper than any boardroom loss. The chip, its red LED still burning in his memory, was a silent accusation. And Catherine's name hung heavy in his thoughts. Sarai sat cross-legged on the rug, her NexTech beta tablet glowing like a beacon in the dim room. At 11, her braids framed a face that held both the defiance of the streets and the focus of a prodigy forged over 14 months of coding boot camps and Priya's mentorship. Her fingers danced across the screen, syncing with Marcus's scanner via Nmap, the network tool she'd mastered under Priya's guidance. The clock's chip had been a spark. Now she was chasing the fire. "It's not alone," she said, her voice cutting through the scanner's hum. "The signal's too strong, like it's talking to others." Langston's eyes narrowed. "Others?" She nodded, her tablet displaying a web of faint pulses. They're linked like a spider's threads. I'm mapping them. Marcus's scanner beeped sharply near the kitchen's smart fridge, a gleaming monolith Catherine had insisted on installing. He pried open its control panel, revealing another chip, identical to the first, its LED blinking in mockery. Same tech, Marcus muttered, his broad frame tensing. Military grade, low power. Sarai's tablet pinged, her map updating with a new node. Got it, she said, but her brow furrowed. It's not just here. Marcus moved to the guest room where the chandelier, another of Catherine's gifts, yielded a third chip, hidden in its crystal base. Then the office lamp at NexTech's headquarters, where Langston spent late nights, coughed up a fourth. Finally, the bedroom's smoke detector, above the bed where he and Catherine slept, revealed a fifth, its lens a cold eye staring down. Langston's stomach churned, his trust in Catherine fracturing with each discovery. 5 chips, each a violation, each a whisper of her complicity. He paced, his loafers silent on the rug, his mind replaying her smiles, her dinners, her soft touches, all now suspect. Sarai, still on the rug, traced the signals to a hub, her tablet's map zooming to a blinking dot in Chicago's loop. It's an office, she said, her voice steady but her fingers trembling slightly. A shell company, Vantage Solutions. The signals route there, encrypted, every 3 days at 2 a.m. Langston stopped pacing, his gaze locking on her screen. How'd you pin it down? She hesitated, a flicker of doubt crossing her face. I cross-checked the signal's IP with public records, like Priya showed me, but I almost missed it. Thought it was a dead end till I reran the trace. Her admission, small but raw, grounded Langston. She wasn't infallible, but her instincts were a blade, honed by streets and sharpened by NexTech's tools. You're doing better than my whole security team, he said, his voice rough with pride. Sarai's lips twitched, a ghost of a smile, but her eyes stayed on the map, as if the hub's dot could bite. Marcus, bagging the chips in evidence pouches, nodded. She's right about the hub. Vantage is tied to Pinnacle Dynamics. Your old rival, Langston. You crushed them for that Pentagon contract last year. Langston's jaw tightened. Pinnacle was a sore loser, but this was no corporate grudge. This was war. The room grew still, the chandelier's light flickering as if it, too, held secrets. Ms. Evelyn, the housekeeper, slipped in, her silver hair pulled tight, her apron spotless but her eyes sharp with unease. Mr. Carter, she whispered, drawing him to the hallway, away from Sarai's ears. I didn't want to say before, but Catherine, she's been off. Late-night calls in the study, always when you're away. Last week I saw her with a man in a black SUV by the garage. They thought I was inside, but I heard her say, Spectre, like a name. Langston's blood ran cold. Spectre, a shadow behind the chips, behind Catherine, behind Pinnacle. Why didn't you tell me sooner? He asked, his voice low but edged. Evelyn's gaze didn't waver. I wasn't sure, but after today, I know what I saw. Langston returned to the living room, his mind a storm of betrayal and calculation. Sarai looked up, her tablet still glowing, her eyes searching his face. You okay? She asked, her voice small but piercing. He forced a nod, but the weight of Evelyn's words pressed against his chest. You're my eyes, Sarai, he said, crouching to her level. You see what I miss. She nodded, her braids swaying, but her fingers tightened on the tablet, as if bracing for what came next. Streets taught me to feel eyes on my back, she said. This house, it's watching us. Marcus sealed the last evidence bag, his voice grim. We'll trace the hub, but this is bigger than Pinnacle. Spectre's no ghost. He's real, and he's close. Langston stood, his gaze drifting to the window, where the city's lights glittered like 1,000 unblinking eyes. A faint hum sounded outside, too brief to pinpoint. A drone or just the wind? He couldn't tell, but the prickle at his neck said it wasn't nothing. Sarai's map blinked on, the hub's dot a silent challenge. The web was hidden, but it was tightening, and the girl on the rug, with her tablet and her street-sharp heart, had just pulled the first thread. The Gold Coast mansion was a mausoleum of secrets as midnight draped its heavy cloak over Chicago. The storm's echo had faded, but the air inside Langston Carter's home crackled with a different kind of tempest, one of doubt and dread. In the study, a room of leather-bound books and soft lamplight, Langston stood rigid, his fingers tracing the edge of a mahogany desk. At 47, the CEO of NexTech Innovations was a man forged in battles of code and contracts. But the discovery of 5 surveillance chips, each a silent traitor planted in his sanctuary, had shaken him to his core. Catherine, his wife of 2 years, was the thread tying them together. Her clock, her fridge, her chandelier. Her name, once a warmth, now burned like a brand. Sarai, 11 and fierce, sat on the study's velvet sofa, her NexTech beta tablet casting a blue glow across her face. Her braids framed eyes that held the street's wariness and a prodigy's fire, honed over 14 months of coding camps and Priya's mentorship at NexTech's youth lab. The chip's signals, mapped to a shadowy hub in the loop, had been her doing, her street instincts catching what Langston's empire missed. Now, as Marcus, the security chief, cataloged the chips in evidence bags, Sarai's gaze darted to the study's bookshelves, her mind churning. "We're blind," she said, her voice slicing the silence. "Those chips hear us, see us, but we don't see them. We need eyes of our own." Langston turned, his brow creasing. "Eyes how?" Sarai leaned forward, her tablet dimming as she set it aside. "A camera. Here, in this room. Catherine's calls. Miss Evelyn said they happen here. Late, when you're gone. She thinks she's safe." Her words carried the weight of her past when spotting a hustler's glance in an alley meant survival. Langston hesitated, the idea of spying on his wife twisting like a knife. "That's a line, Sarai. If she's innocent..." Sarai's eyes didn't flinch. "If she's innocent, you'll sleep. If not, we'll know. Put it behind the bookshelf. She won't look there. It's where people hide what they don't want seen." Her logic was cold, unyielding, and Langston felt a chill of awe. This girl who'd outsmarted a thief at a train station was now outthinking him in his own home. He nodded, his voice low. "You're sure?" Sarai's fingers twitched, a flicker of doubt crossing her face. "I'm sure she's hiding something. I felt it, like when I missed that signal yesterday. I won't miss this." Her admission, raw and human, steadied him. She wasn't a machine. She was a kid, brilliant but learning, and her courage cut deeper than her code. Marcus, his broad frame silhouetted against the study's window, agreed. "Smart play. I'll install it tonight. Motion activated, encrypted feed." He rigged a tiny camera behind a row of dusty tomes, its lens peering through a gap like a predator's eye. Sarai watched, her tablet open to monitor the setup, her fingers syncing it with a NexTech app Priya had shown her. "It's live," she said, her voice tight with anticipation. Langston's chest tightened, the act feeling like a betrayal of his vows, yet Sarai's steady gaze anchored him. "Streets taught me to trust my gut," she said softly. "Yours is screaming too, isn't it?" 2 nights later, the camera's feed crackled to life on Langston's laptop, the study bathed in moonlight. Catherine slipped in, her silk robe whispering against the floor, a burner phone pressed to her ear. Her voice was low, honeyed, but sharp. "He's distracted with the girl," she said, pacing. "The neural chip's specs are close. Tell Spectre we're on schedule." Langston's breath stopped, his heart a stone in his chest. Sarai, beside him in his office, gripped his arm, her small hand steadying his trembling one. "She's not just cheating," Sarai whispered, her eyes locked on the screen. "She's selling you out." The footage rolled on, Catherine's shadow stretching across the bookshelves. A man entered, Victor Klein, Pinnacle Dynamics COO, his suit crisp despite the hour. Langston recognized him from last year's Pentagon bid, a sore loser with a shark smile. Catherine handed him a USB drive, her lips curling in a cold arc. "The latest encryption keys," she said. "Spectre wants the full prototype by next week." Victor nodded, pocketing the drive, their embrace brief but calculated, like co-conspirators sealing a pact. The camera caught it all, its lens unblinking. Sarai's instinct vindicated. Langston's vision blurred, not with tears but with fury. His marriage was a lie, a stage for Catherine to steal NexTech's neural chip, a technology worth billions, capable of controlling global, smart ecosystems. He slammed the laptop shut, the sound echoing like a gunshot. Sarai flinched but didn't look away. "You okay?" she asked, her voice small but piercing. He shook his head, his voice raw. "How'd you know, Sarai? How'd you see her when I couldn't?" She met his gaze, her street days flashing in her eyes. "On the streets, you learn to read lies in people's moves. Catherine's too perfect, like she's playing a part." Marcus, summoned to the office, reviewed the footage, his jaw tight. "This is corporate espionage, Langston. Pinnacle's behind it, but Spectre's the real player. We need to move fast." Langston nodded, his mind a storm of betrayal and resolve. He crouched to Sarai's level, his voice steady despite the chaos within. "You're my eyes, kid. You just saved me." Sarai's lips twitched, a flicker of pride breaking through her wariness. "We're not done," she said, her tablet glowing again, ready for the fight. Outside, the city slept, its skyline a jagged silhouette against the stars. But in the mansion, a light flickered in the study's window, brief and deliberate, like a signal. Langston didn't see it, but the prickle at his neck, the same one from the station, the storm, whispered of eyes unseen. The shadows were deepening, and Sarai's camera had just cast the first light. The dawn broke over Chicago like a cracked mirror, its light jagged and cold, spilling across the Gold Coast mansion where betrayal had taken root. Langston Carter gripped the wheel of his smart-enabled sedan, the hum of its AI engine a faint comfort as he navigated the I-90 toward NexTech's glass tower. At 47, the CEO was a man of steel, but the footage from the study, Catherine's whispered treason with Victor Klein, her hand passing a USB drive to Pinnacle Dynamics COO, had left fissures in his resolve. The word Spectre, spoken like a curse, echoed in his mind, a shadow orchestrating a plot to steal NexTech's neural chip, a technology that could command the world's smart devices. Langston's eyes, shadowed by sleepless nights, flicked to the rearview mirror, half expecting a drone's red blink, like the one that haunted the train station. The storm, the study. At 70 miles per hour, the car lurched, its brakes locking with a screech that tore through the morning. Langston's heart slammed against his ribs as the sedan fishtailed, tires screaming on asphalt. A semi-truck loomed, its horn a bellow of warning. He wrenched the wheel, muscles straining, and skidded onto the shoulder, the truck missing him by inches. Dust swirled as he sat, breath ragged, the car's dashboard flashing error codes like a dying pulse. His hands trembled, not from fear, but from the realization that this was no accident. Someone wanted him dead. Sarai, waiting at the mansion with Miss Evelyn, felt the air shift when Langston returned, his face a mask of fury and ash. At 11, her braids framed eyes that had seen too much. Streets, chips, Catherine's lies, but nothing like this. "What happened?" she asked, her NexTech beta tablet clutched like a shield. Langston's voice was raw. "My car tried to kill me." Marcus, summoned from NexTech, tore into the sedan's AI module, uncovering a tampered chip, its code rewritten to fail at high speed. "This isn't just spying," Marcus said, his broad frame tense. "It's attempted murder. Pinnacle's escalating, or Spectre is." Sarai's eyes widened, her street instincts flaring. "They're scared," she whispered. "That means we're close." Langston's office became a war room, its windows reflecting the city's restless skyline. Sarai sat at a glass table, her tablet glowing with Nmap logs from the chip's hub in the loop. Over 14 months, Priya's mentorship and coding boot camps had sharpened her mind. But this was new terrain, life or death. "We can't wait for them to strike again," Langston said, pacing. "We hit back." Marcus nodded. "A trap. Feed them fake data, trace their network." Sarai's fingers twitched, an idea sparking. "A decoy neural chip blueprint," she said. "Make them think they've won, but hide a tracker in it." Langston stopped, his gaze locking on her. "You can do that?" She hesitated, her cheeks flushing. "I can try, but I'll need Priya." Priya, a NexTech engineer with a quick smile and sharper code, joined them, her laptop open beside Sarai's tablet. "Show me what you got, kid," she said, her voice warm but focused. Sarai sketched a tracking beacon, a simple ping to log access attempts, her code rough but clever. I wanted it to encrypt itself, she admitted, her voice small, but it kept crashing. Priya's fingers flew, refining the beacon and weaving it into a fake chip schematic, her guidance steadying Sarai's nerves. You're thinking like a pro, Priya said, nudging her. This'll fool Pinnacle's best. Sarai's lips twitched, a flicker of pride breaking through her doubt. The decoy was a digital landmine, designed to trace whoever opened it back to their servers. Sarai synced it to NexTech's secure cloud, her tablet pinging as Priya uploaded the file. When they take it, Sarai said, we'll see their whole web. Langston watched, awe battling the rage in his chest. This girl who'd once snatched his phone from a thief with nothing but her eyes was now outsmarting killers with code. You're sure it'll work? He asked, his voice low. Sarai met his gaze, her street days flashing back. Reading a mark's twitch was no different from reading a network's pulse. It'll work, she said, but her fingers gripped the tablet tighter, a shadow of fear lingering. That night Langston hosted dinner, his face a mask of normalcy as Catherine set the table, her silk blouse pristine, her smile a practiced art. You've been quiet, she said, stirring her soup, her eyes searching his. Langston sipped his wine, his tone even. Just work. You've been busy too, haven't you? Catherine's smile didn't falter, but her spoon paused, a hairline crack in her facade. Sarai, eating silently, caught Langston's glance, her nod subtle but firm. The decoy was live, waiting for Catherine to bite. As she cleared the plates, Catherine's phone buzzed, and her face tightened for a split second before she excused herself to the study. Sarai whispered, She's checking. Langston's pulse raced, the trap set but the prey still sharp. Marcus monitored the cloud from NexTech, ready to trace the decoy's access. Sarai sat beside Langston, her tablet dim but active, her eyes on the study's closed door. What if she smells it? She asked, her voice barely audible. Langston crouched, his hand on her shoulder. She won't. You're better than her. Sarai nodded, but her breath hitched, her street instincts screaming of danger. Outside, the city's lights pulsed like a heartbeat, but a flicker caught Langston's eye, a shadow on the lawn, too deliberate for a tree's sway. A drone, its red light glinting, hovered briefly before vanishing into the night. Langston's neck prickled, the same chill from the station, the storm, the study. The sabotage had failed, but Spectre's web was tightening, and Sarai's decoy was their only chance to cut through. The mansion was silent, but the war had begun, and the girl at the table, with her tablet and her heart of steel, was its sharpest blade. The Chicago night was a velvet shroud, pierced by the city's restless lights. But inside Langston Carter's Gold Coast mansion, the darkness felt alive, pulsing with secrets. It was 2:03 a.m., the hour when Sarai's decoy neural chip blueprint, laced with her tracking beacon, was set to expose the traitors who'd nearly killed him. Langston stood in his office, its windows reflecting a skyline that seemed to watch him back. At 47, the CEO of NexTech Innovations was a man carved from resolve, but the weight of Catherine's betrayal, her whispered deals with Victor Klein, her hand passing a USB drive under the study's moonlight, pressed against his chest like a stone. The car sabotage, its brakes locking at 70 miles per hour, was a scream he couldn't silence. Spectre, the shadow behind it all, was close, and Sarai's trap was their only blade. Sarai, 11 and unyielding, sat at a glass desk, her NexTech beta tablet glowing with Nmap's jagged graphs. Her braids framed eyes that burned with street-honed instinct and a prodigy's focus, sharpened over 14 months of coding camps and Priya's mentorship. The decoy her idea sparked in the wake of Langston's near death had been refined with Priya's code, a digital lure to trace Pinnacle Dynamics Network and unmask Spectre. It's live, Sarai said, her voice steady but her fingers gripping the tablet's edge, a flicker of fear betraying her courage. Langston crouched beside her, his hand on her shoulder. You did this, kid. Whatever happens, you've already won. Her lips twitched, a ghost of a smile, but her eyes stayed locked on the screen, waiting for the trap to spring. Marcus, NexTech's security chief, monitored the cloud from a laptop, his broad frame tense as he synced with Sarai's tablet. If Catherine takes the bait, he said, We'll see their whole web. The mansion was silent, its grandeur mocked by the chips that had spied on them. Clock, fridge, chandelier, lamp, smoke detector. Catherine slept upstairs, her silk robe draped over a chair, oblivious to the camera that had caught her treason. Langston's jaw tightened, her laughter from dinner, a performance of love, now a poison in his veins. Sarai's tablet pinged, a red dot flaring on her map. "She's in," Sarai whispered, her voice sharp with triumph. "The study, right now." The feed from the hidden camera flickered to life. Catherine's silhouette pacing in the study's dim glow. Her burner phone glowed as she uploaded the decoy blueprint, her voice low but urgent. "It's done, Victor. The neural chip's ours. Tell Spectre we're ready." Langston's breath caught, fury and grief colliding. Sarai's beacon logged the transfer, tracing the file to Pinnacle's servers in a Chicago high-rise. But a second signal spiked, an encrypted line to an unknown server, tagged with a stylized S. Sarai's eyes widened. "That's not Pinnacle," she said, her fingers flying to cross-check the IP, a trick Priya had taught her. "It's Spectre somewhere else. Offshore, maybe." Marcus cursed softly. "She's not the top. She's a pawn." Langston's mind raced. Pinnacle was a rival, but Spectre was the architect, a shadow aiming not just for NexTech's chip, but its empire. Sarai's tablet glitched briefly, her trace stuttering. "I almost lost it," she admitted, her cheeks flushing. "The signal's slippery, like a hustler dodging a cop." Her street instinct steadied her, and she reran the trace, pinning the offshore server to a shell in the Caymans. Langston nodded, pride cutting through his rage. "You're better than they are," he said, his voice raw. Sarai's shoulders eased, but her eyes stayed sharp, her trap now a window into the conspiracy's heart. Marcus called the FBI, his voice clipped as he shared the traced data. Pinnacle's servers, the Cayman's link, the study footage. "We've got enough for warrants," he said, hanging up. Langston stared at the camera feed, Catherine's pacing a dance of deceit. "She doesn't know," he muttered, his heart a bruise. Sarai touched his arm, her voice small. "She made her choice." Her words, soft but steel, echoed her street days. Survival meant seeing truth, no matter how it cut. At dawn, the FBI raided Pinnacle's high-rise, their unmarked SUVs storming the loop. Victor Klein was cuffed in his glass office, his shark smile gone. Catherine's arrest came quieter, agents entering the mansion as the first light bled through the windows. She stood in the foyer, her silk robe slipping, her face a mask of shock that shattered when she saw Langston. "You don't understand," she screamed, her voice cracking as cuffs clicked. "Spectre will bury you." Langston didn't flinch, his eyes cold. "Tell Spectre he underestimated a kid." Sarai, watching from the staircase, clutched her tablet, her face a mix of triumph and sorrow. She'd won, but the cost was etched in Langston's hollow gaze. Marcus briefed them in the office. The FBI's haul laid bare. Servers seized, emails linking Victor to NexTech's VP of R&D, bribed to leak code. But Catherine's study held a darker prize, a hidden safe, cracked open to reveal burner phones and a notebook scrawled with NexTech's unreleased projects. One line chilled Langston. "Spectre demands acquisition. Carter's death optional." Sarai read it over his shoulder, her breath hitching. "They wanted everything," she whispered. Langston nodded, his resolve hardening. "Then we fight bigger." The mansion was still, its air heavy with the aftermath. Sarai sat on the rug, her tablet dim, her eyes distant. "Did I do right?" she asked, her voice small, a child's beneath the prodigy's armor. Langston crouched, his voice steady. "You saved us, Sarai. You're my eyes." She nodded, but her fingers trembled, the weight of her street past and tech present colliding. Outside, the city woke, its skyline glittering like a promise, or a threat. A faint hum sounded, too quick to trace. A drone, its red light winking before vanishing. Spectre's web was torn, but its master was still out there, and Sarai's beacon had just lit a fuse in a war far from over. The Chicago skyline glittered like a blade under the moonless night, its sharp edges a silent challenge to the secrets buried in Langston Carter's Gold Coast mansion. A week had passed since Catherine's arrest, her screams of "Spectre will bury you," still echoing in Langston's ears. At 47, the CEO of NexTech Innovations stood in his office, the room's oak walls closing in like a trap. The raids had crippled Pinnacle Dynamics, Victor Klein's cuffs a fleeting victory, but the notebook from Catherine's safe, Spectre demands acquisition, Carter's death optional, was a noose tightening around his future. NexTech's neural chip, a technology to weave global smart devices into a single mind, was safe for now. But Spectre, the unseen master, was still out there, his drone's red eyes haunting Langston's dreams. Sarai, 11 and fierce as ever, hunched over her NexTech beta tablet in the office's corner, its glow casting shadows across her braids. Her eyes, forged in Chicago's streets and sharpened by 14 months of coding camps, burned with focus. Priya's mentorship had built her decoy blueprint, but now a new ally, Elena, a former NSA analyst with a hawk's gaze, guided her deeper into NexTech's digital trenches. The arrests hadn't ended the war, they'd provoked it. At 3:17 a.m., NexTech's servers flagged an intrusion attempt, a ghost slipping through their firewalls from a sole proxy. Sarai's tablet pinged, her custom software, Shadow Trace, a prototype she'd sketched with Priya, catching the breach's faint pulse. "They're back," she said, her voice slicing the room's stillness. Langston spun, his jaw tight. "Spectre?" Elena, her laptop open beside Sarai, nodded, her fingers dancing across keys. "Looks like it. They're targeting the neural chip patents, trying to corrupt the source code." Sarai's screen flared, Shadow Trace mapping the intrusion's path in jagged reds. "It's not just a hack," she said, her street instincts flaring. "It's like a pickpocket distracting you while they cut your bag." Her analogy, raw and sharp, steadied Langston. This girl, who'd snatched his phone from a thief and unmasked Catherine's lies, saw patterns where others saw noise. Elena leaned over, her voice calm but urgent. "Show me your map, Sarai." The girl swiped, revealing a spiderweb of pings. Seoul, Frankfurt, then a U.S. node. "I tried filtering for anomalies like Priya taught me," Sarai said, her cheeks flushing. "But it's messy. I missed a loop yesterday." Her admission, small but honest, grounded her genius. Elena smiled faintly. "You're 11, kid. I was 30 before I caught loops like this." She guided Sarai's fingers, tweaking Shadow Trace's algorithm to predict the hacker's next move. "Add a behavioral layer," Elena said. "Watch how they pause. It's their tell." Sarai nodded, her tablet syncing with Elena's laptop, the software now a sleek hunter tracking its prey. The intrusion spiked, a digital claw scraping NexTech's patent vault. Langston's pulse raced, memories of his car's brakes locking at 70 miles per hour, flashing like warning lights. "Can you stop it?" he asked, his voice low. Sarai's fingers flew, her eyes narrowing. "I can do better. I can trace it." Shadow Trace lit up, pinning the U.S. node to a server in Dallas, masked as a telecom hub. But a second signature emerged, a stylized S embedded in the code, like a taunt. "That's Spectre," Sarai whispered, her voice trembling for the first time. Elena's jaw tightened. "He's not just hacking. He's marking his territory." Langston's office felt smaller, the air thick with unseen eyes. Marcus, summoned from NexTech, reviewed the logs, his broad frame a bulwark against the rising dread. "Dallas is a front," he said. "The real server's offshore. Dubai, maybe, like the Cayman's link." Sarai's tablet pinged again, her trace confirming a Dubai node, cloaked as a venture capital firm. "They're a syndicate," Langston muttered, his mind racing. Spectre wasn't just a rival. He was a predator, hunting NexTech's soul. Then Langston's secure phone buzzed, a message from a blocked number. "Stop digging, or the girl pays." Sarai froze, her tablet slipping in her hands, her street days crashing back. Alleys, hunger, threats. "They know me," she whispered, her voice small, a child's beneath the prodigy's armor. Langston crouched, his hand steadying hers. "They're scared, Sarai. You're their nightmare." Her eyes met his, fear battling fire. "What if I'm not enough?" she asked, her breath hitching. He squeezed her shoulder, his voice fierce. "You're more than enough. You're my eyes. Elena rerouted NexTech's defenses. Shadow Trace now a shield as well as a sword. Sarai tweaked its visuals, her graphs catching Spectre's pauses. His tell, like a hustler's twitch. He's testing us, she said, her voice steadier. Like he wants us to flinch. Langston nodded, pride cutting through his fear. This girl who'd mapped chips and trapped Catherine was now wrestling a ghost in the machine. Keep watching, he said, his gaze drifting to the window, where the city's lights flickered like a code he couldn't crack. Marcus's phone buzzed, an FBI contact confirming the Dubai lead. They're mobilizing, he said, but his eyes held caution. Spectre's too clean. He's got layers we haven't touched. Sarai's tablet dimmed, her energy waning, but her fingers stayed ready. We're close, she said, her street instincts unyielding. I can feel it, like eyes on my back. Langston's neck prickled, the same chill from the station, the storm, the study. He glanced outside, catching a red blink, a drone, hovering like a vulture before vanishing into the night. The ghost was in the machine, but it was also in their shadows, and Sarai's light was the only thing keeping it at bay. The Chicago night was a cauldron of secrets, its skyline a jagged crown of light and shadow, daring the world to unravel its truths. Inside NexTech Innovations' war room, Langston Carter stood like a general before a storm, his eyes burning with a resolve forged in betrayal. At 47, the CEO had faced Catherine's lies, Victor Klein's greed, and a car sabotage that nearly claimed his life. But Spectre, the ghost orchestrating the theft of NexTech's neural chip, remained a blade at his throat. The notebook's chilling words, Spectre demands acquisition, Carter's death optional, and the recent server intrusion from Seoul and Dubai had tightened the noose. Langston's office, once a sanctuary, was now a battlefield, its glass walls reflecting a city that seemed to whisper his name. Sarai, 11 and unyielding, sat at a sleek console, her NexTech beta tablet glowing with Shadow Trace's pulsing graphs. Her braids framed eyes that held the street's defiance in a prodigy's precision, honed over 14 months of coding camps and mentorship from Priya and Elena. The threat, stop digging or the girl pays, had shaken her, but her fingers were steady, her mind a weapon. We can't wait for Spectre to strike again, she said, her voice cutting through the room's hum of servers. We bait him, make him think he's won. Langston's gaze locked on her. How? Sarai swiped her tablet, revealing a plan she'd sketched with Elena. A fake patent filing for the neural chip, laced with a virus. When they open it, it locks their servers and traces them. Elena, the former NSA analyst, nodded from her laptop, her hawk's gaze sharp. She's right. A honeypot. Irresistible but deadly. Sarai's idea, dubbed Butterfly Sting, was a digital guillotine, its interface her creation, its lockdown code Elena's. I built the dashboard, Sarai said, her voice firm but tinged with doubt. But the virus, I needed Elena's help. My first try crashed. Her admission, raw and honest, grounded her brilliance. Elena's lips twitched. You're 11, kid. Your dashboard's better than my first scripts. Langston felt a surge of pride. This girl, who'd outsmarted a thief and unmasked Catherine, was now crafting a trap for a syndicate. Priya, NexTech's engineer, synced Sarai's tablet with the secure cloud, her quick smile steadying the room. The virus will spread like wings, Sarai said, her street instincts flaring, like catching a hustler's twitch before he runs. Langston approved the plan, his voice low. Leak it through a compromised account. Make them think it's a mistake. Sarai nodded, her fingers trembling slightly, the weight of her role pressing down. What if they see through it? She asked, her eyes flickering with fear. Langston crouched, his hand on her shoulder. They won't. You're my eyes, Sarai. Her breath steadied, her street days dodging threats in alleys, fueling her resolve. At 3 a.m., Shadow Trace flared, the fake patent accessed from Dubai, then relayed to a Manhattan IP. Elena's voice crackled with urgency. They bit. Triton Global, a conglomerate tied to Pinnacle. Sarai's dashboard lit up, the butterfly sting locking Triton's servers, its trace mapping their network in red threads. Got them, Sarai whispered, her eyes wide with triumph. Marcus, NexTech's security chief, confirmed the Manhattan hit. Triton's a front for Spectre. We've got their digital fingerprints. Langston's jaw tightened. The trap was sprung, but the real strike was his to deliver. By morning, Langston stood before Triton Global's 57-story monolith, a black coat cloaking his fury, a silver USB drive in his hand. Evidence of Triton's syndicate, from Catherine's notebook to Sarai's traces. He walked past reception, his presence silencing the lobby, his eyes a storm no guard dared challenge. The private elevator hummed to the 47th floor, opening to a hush of gray carpet and polished steel. Arthur Voss, Triton's CEO, waited at the boardroom's glass table, his gray hair sleek, his suit understated but lethal. His smile was a predator's, the S in his cufflinks a silent confession. Spectre. You don't understand subtlety, Carter, Voss said, his voice smooth as venom. Langston tossed the USB across the table, its clink a gunshot in the silence. Everything you've built is traced. Shells, servers, your syndicate. Disband it, confess, or this goes to the FBI, 3 media outlets, and the SEC. Voss's smile faltered, his eyes flicking to the USB. You're bluffing. Langston leaned forward, his voice ice. Another copy's with my lawyer. You have until tonight. Sarai, listening via a hidden earpiece from NexTech's war room, whispered, He's lying. Check his laptop. Elena hacked Voss's system, finding emails confirming his role as Spectre. The butterfly sting exposing his network. Voss's composure cracked. You have a child, Carter. Be careful where you shine your light. Langston's voice was a blade. She's why I shine it. You touch the wrong family. He turned, leaving the door open like a storm's warning. Outside, FBI agents in unmarked SUVs waited, alerted by Marcus. Voss was cuffed, his sneer gone, his empire crumbling under Sarai's code. Sarai, in the war room, clutched her tablet, her breath hitching. We did it, she said, but her eyes held a shadow. Triumph, yes, but also fear of what lingered. Back at NexTech, the team exhaled. The war room's screens dark, but for shadow traces fading graphs. Langston stared at the skyline, his heart a tangle of victory and loss. Sarai approached, her voice small. Is he gone? Langston nodded, but his neck prickled. The drone's red blink a ghost in his mind. For now, he said, his hand on her shoulder. You lit the fuse, Sarai. She smiled, faint but fierce, her street instincts unbowed. Outside, a light flickered across the street, too deliberate for chance. Spectre's web was broken, but its echoes remained, and Sarai's butterfly sting had just rewritten the rules of their war. The Chicago spring unfurled like a long-held breath, its soft winds carrying the scent of blooming magnolias through the South Side's streets, where hope had often been a stranger. 3 months had passed since Arthur Voss's cuffs clicked in Triton Global's boardroom, his sneer as Spectre silenced by Sarai's butterfly sting, a digital guillotine that locked his syndicate's servers and exposed their web. Langston Carter stood on a grassy lot, the skyline a distant crown of steel and glass, his heart lighter but still scarred. At 47, the CEO of NexTech Innovations had faced betrayal, Catherine's lies, Victor's greed, a car's brakes locking at 70 miles per hour. But Sarai, the 11-year-old girl he'd found in a train station shadows, had been his salvation. Her genius had saved NexTech's neural chip, a technology now reshaping the world's smart devices, but today was about a different legacy. Sarai, now 12, stood beside him, her braids gleaming under the sun, her NexTech beta tablet tucked under her arm like a talisman. Her eyes, forged in Chicago's alleys and honed by 14 months of coding camps, Priya's code, and Elena's algorithms, held a quiet fire, defiance softened by hope. The lot, once a tangle of weeds, was now the Sarai Academy, a sleek building of glass and brick, its doors open to 50 kids from shelters and foster homes. Sarai's idea, born in the war room's aftermath, was a beacon for those like her, smart, stuck, unseen. It's real, she whispered, her voice catching, as a banner unfurled above. A book with butterfly wings, her design, a symbol of flight from shadows. Langston's chest tightened, pride battling the ghosts of their war. Catherine's notebook, Voss's threat, "Stop digging or the girl pays," still lingered, but NexTech was stronger, its servers fortified, its leadership loyal. He'd pledged $10 million to the academy, naming Sarai co-founder, a title she wore like armor. "You did this," he said, his voice low, his hand on her shoulder. Sarai's lips twitched, a flicker of her street wariness. "I just saw what was there," she said, but her eyes sparkled, reflecting the crowd gathering. Kids, teachers, reporters, all drawn to her light. The ribbon cutting began, the mayor's speech a hum of platitudes, but Sarai's turn silenced the air. She stepped to the podium, her sneakers scuffing the stage, her blazer too big but her presence vast. "Nobody's invisible if you see their spark," she said, her voice clear, carrying the weight of train stations, chips and drones. "This place is for kids who've lost everything but still have something to give." The crowd erupted, cameras flashing, but Sarai's gaze found Langston, her nod subtle, a shared vow forged in their fight. He clapped, his throat tight, seeing not just a girl, but a force who'd outsmarted a syndicate at 11. Inside, the academy buzzed. Classrooms with coding labs, libraries with books Sarai had picked, a mural of butterflies she'd sketched. She led Langston through, her tablet dim but ever present, her fingers tracing a wall where kids' names were etched. "They're like me," she said, her voice soft. "They just need a chance." Langston paused, memories flashing. Sarai's phone recovery at the station, her chip discovery in his clock, her camera catching Catherine's lies. "You gave them that," he said, his voice raw. "You gave me that." Sarai's eyes glistened, her street armor cracking. "I was scared, you know. Every time. But you believed me." Her words pierced him, a reminder of her youth beneath the prodigy's mantle. He crouched, meeting her gaze. "You were never alone, Sarai. You're my eyes." She nodded, a tear slipping free, but her smile was fierce. A butterfly breaking its cocoon. Priya and Elena joined them, their presence a quiet anchor. "She's a genius," Elena said, her hawk's gaze softening. "I was 30 before I dreamed this big." Priya nudged Sarai, her smile warm. "Your dashboard's still on my laptop, kid. You're NexTech's future." Sarai flushed, her street instincts, reading crowds, dodging threats, now guiding her to build, not just survive. The tour ended in the Academy's garden, where monarch butterflies danced over blooming milkweed. Sarai held out her hand, one landing gently, its wings a flicker of orange. "They're stronger than they look," she said, her voice steady. Langston smiled, his heart easing. "So are you." But a shadow crossed his mind. The drone's red blink, the flickering light after Voss's fall. Spectre's web was broken, but its echoes lingered, a whisper of eyes unseen. He scanned the sky, catching a glint. Too high, too fast to be sure. Sarai squeezed his hand, her instincts sharp. "Let them watch," she said, her voice a blade. "We're not afraid anymore." The crowd dispersed, the academy alive with laughter and promise. Langston and Sarai lingered, the sun dipping low, casting long shadows across the grass. "What now?" she asked, her tablet under her arm, her eyes searching his. He looked at the building, its glass catching the last light. "We keep building," he said. "For you, for them, for us." Sarai nodded, her smile small but unshakable. A girl who'd faced a syndicate and won, not with fists, but with her mind, her heart, her spark. As they walked back, a breeze stirred the butterflies, lifting them skyward, weightless and free. Langston's neck prickled, a final echo of the war they'd fought. He glanced at Sarai, her braids swaying, her tablet glowing faintly as she sketched a new app. An idea for the Academy's coders. The city hummed around them, its secrets quieter now, but not gone. The Sarai Academy stood as a testament to their victory, a light in the shadows, and Sarai, the girl from the station, was its beating heart. Somewhere, a drone's hum faded into the dusk. But for tonight, the world was theirs, and the future was a canvas only they could paint. What if a child's spark could topple a syndicate? Sarai's courage lit up the shadows, proving genius knows no age. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Did Sarai's journey inspire you? Drop a comment below. What moved you most, and where are you listening from? Thank you for joining us on this pulse-pounding ride through betrayal and triumph. Hit subscribe to catch our next tale of unbreakable spirits, where secrets wait to be unraveled. Until then, keep your eyes sharp, like Sarai's, and we'll meet again in the next story.